Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin from grayflorals.com and today I have another layout process video. Today's layout begins with a wood grain piece of paper from this paper stack from DCWV called Hello Darling. I'm also scrapbooking just a single photo this time, and it's a floral arrangement that's actually for my 1-year anniversary at my work. So I got that last year, and that's the picture of it. So I have my same butterflies out that I used in the last process video because they're sitting on my desk. They sort of inspired me to go for this more vintagey type of rustic look because the flowers are some flowers, some rustic flowers. I also pulled out this brand new twine that I bought on Thanksgiving clearance at Michael's. It's sort of like a burnt orange coppery color with gold foil throughout. And what I'm thinking is I'll make a loop out of it. So if you guys know, I've done a couple different layouts where I have a wreath design. This is going to be just like one of those, except I draw a very poor circle. It's not too bad, and I eventually get it to straighten out when I trim the paper down, so you'll see that in a little bit. So I'm just going to start gluing it down now. I'm using my fine line bottle, which does get clogged a few times, and you'll see the lines sort of get thinner. It does look really, really messy, and it still does even at the end, but it's starting to dry more now. I just filmed it, but as it dries, it will dry clear. So I'm not too worried about the mess, but I will show you guys a tip for how you can clean up extra glue off your layout. And there's different ways to do this, but I'll just show you how to do it when it's still wet. We'll have to revisit it sometime once it is dry to see how it turns out. I'll probably post the Instagram photos after it's dry, so I'm still waiting to take those, and you guys will be able to see it then. But I trimmed the twine down to approximately how much I needed. I did make it extra just in case I wanted to change the shape somehow. And I'm just adding a little bit of glue at a time and then holding it with my fingers and then moving on to the next section. This will take quite a bit to dry to really stay stiff, so just be aware of that. I did try going to my just normal glue bottle. That was a mistake. It was way too much glue, so definitely stick with your fine line if you're trying to do a similar technique. So as I'm gluing it down, I'm just trying to add a lot of pressure because when you're using your fine line bottle, you'll find that it clogs sometimes, so it's important to keep putting your cap back on, especially when it's not in use. That way it stays longer life. I know some people who have multiple bottles, which can be a great idea. Here's where I start using some extra paper to just scrape up the extra goop of glue that I had, and I'm just wiping it on another scratch piece of paper. I think it worked really well to scrape up some, but it also just made some thinner. So it really depends on the look you're going for. This does sort of have a somewhat shiny texture when it dries. It's not too shiny. It's a little bit matte, but it could always be better. So I'm almost done with the circle now, and you can kind of tell it's a wonky circle, and you saw me free-handed at the beginning. But if you want a perfect circle, I recommend tracing a bowl or, just another circle in your craft stash, because obviously this is a little wonky, which I like that kind of style, more so than a perfect one would have been, because I would somehow figure out how to mess it up. But I think it turned out well, despite being off-center, very, very off-center. I'm going to set that aside to dry while I work on some layers for my photo. So I end up being able to trim this down to 4.5 inches. I wanted it to be 4, but because of the way I took it, it just wouldn't fit into a square format, which is fine. And since I'm going to be laying this over top of where the twine is, or the jute, or whatever you want to call it, I will have to put it on some foam adhesive, but first I'm going to add my paper layers. So I go to this Dear Lizzie paper pad Lucky Charm, an oldie but a goodie, and I pull out 2 papers. One's like this vintage cream color and one's this brighter red color. Both have distressing on the sides, which I thought would be perfect for this sort of rustic look we're going for. So I don't end up inking the edges of these, but I did consider it. Since 2 of the edges will already have that distressed look, I figured it'd be okay just to leave them as is. I also didn't have much else to ink on this page because I don't end up using any die cuts besides those butterflies, and then the other elements I use don't really need to be inked. You can also see I have that burnt orange cardstock pulled out. I originally thought I was going to go with that sort of color scheme, but I end up incorporating it later. So here I start cutting my foam pieces, trying to figure out where they'll have to go in order for this design to work. I know I have to put some on each side, otherwise it'll be unbalanced. And one way you can do this is just by tucking like I am right here, trying to see where it'll lay, and I want to get a 3rd spot there for the bottom, and then putting your photo over it. And that pretty much covers it. You don't have to have too much or too little, and then I just put adhesive on the back of my layers. I use both tape and liquid adhesive when it comes to attaching foam. I just think it'll last longer in the long term. And then getting the spots that I missed with some more liquid adhesive. Now before I glue that down, I want to figure out some of the other things I want to do to this layout, including adding this border. So this is a very beautiful wood grain, but my circle's off center, and I also want some more warmth to this layer. Right now it feels very cool toned. I'm not sure if it's just this wood that's giving that vibe or maybe all my white glue, but I definitely want this pop of orange. And I think I actually cut one of the sides crooked because of my trimmer, but it's hard to tell in this angle or in general in person even if it is crooked or not, but it still turns out fine. Since my front side is drying, I'm going to just put adhesive on the back cardstock here, and I totally could have got this paper, but I actually have like a 25 pack of this paper, so I don't really need to do that. Here's where the fun begins. I start to embellish the outside of this circle. Now, if you've seen me do a wreath layout before, and I have a couple on my channel now that you guys should definitely check out thanks to my go-to design series back in the fall time. Definitely check those out. I share tons of tips there. But I'm using these butterfly motifs again. I didn't have to. It's not like I was doing a challenge or anything, but I thought it'd be nice to use them because I just received them and I liked the vintage vibe of the dictionary, and I really liked the orange sequins because they add that pop of warmth like the flowers have in the photo. So I created a little label cluster here underneath the left side of my photo, or I guess on top of the left side of my photo rather, with a freckled fawn label and a jelly bean soup wood veneer arrow. I also pull out this jelly bean soup camera. I just think it's fitting for the cream background it has as well as the pop of orange on the camera itself. It just was too perfect of a color scheme not to go with it. Then I start bringing in some more of these jelly bean soup wood veneer that are off in the corner of my desk there. And I like having them there because I reach for wood veneer often, so it's nice to have a little variety pack there that's new to me and that I'm trying to use up. Here's where I start to commit where I put my photo. I do have to wiggle it around just a little bit, but it falls into place nicely thanks to where I put all of my little foam pieces. So I'm going to start gluing down my main sections here. I think it's nice when you have a wreath layout to have something that goes all the way around besides just the pen or the stitching or whatever you might be putting on here. So I end up going with sequins, but I'm working on the main sections first. I pull out some different varieties of embellishments. I try flare, I try resin flowers. I even thought about using some rubber shapes or some puffy stickers. Here's where I find my Tim Holtz resin flowers. He had made a cream colored set, which is really, really fun. I think it was an everyday line. It might still be available. And I will try to have all the products linked down below in case you guys are interested in finding any of these. I believe the DCWV paper pad's still available, and it's one of my favorite ones that I picked up from them in recent years. I look at some more flare because I'm really not finding one that matches the color scheme that I want. And I eventually find these jelly bean soup puffy stickers that match the collection of stickers that I was already working with, so I know they'll match well with the pop of bright orange I have. I really tried to work in those flare, but I ended up just not doing that instead because I thought that it was too bulky for this dainty layout that I ended up with. And as of right now, I definitely think it looks a bit bare and needs something else. So I pull out Lovely Day, Hippity Hoppity, and Belle's Ball sequin mixes. Now some of these are older, so you might not be able to find them anymore at Spiegel Mom Scraps, but I absolutely adore them. Belle's Ball is one I use the most because it has these perfect, they're kind of translucent. They're like a frosted translucent sequin, and they're just round and pretty much clear. And then I pair that with a peach, a white flower, some gold leaves, and I think the bright yellow I incorporate as well a couple times. And I just end up using these all around the circle. Now I think it does dress it up a bit, and if you guys find that your layouts feel a little bit plain, maybe you need some sequins, maybe you need some enamel dots, or maybe you need some of those Nuvo drops or what other brands they have of those. But I think the sequins really help, and I tried not to do a pattern, but you'll see here that I pretty much do a pattern of one on one side, one on the other, alternating inside the circle and outside the circle because it just looked better that way and looked like a real wreath because wreaths are full and exciting, so kind of trying to keep that in mind as I went around. But I did not put the actual colors or sizes in any order. I wanted to keep that a bit more organic. I do add an extra butterfly, which I did not intend on doing, but I think it worked really, really well. I'll put that sort of facing off the page, which I thought was a bit interesting because that's sort of how the other one does on the other side. Now, if I was thinking, I would have moved it up or down so it wasn't directly across, but that's okay. It's just little things like that that can sometimes make a difference in terms of how a layout might turn out. So like I said, as I'm putting them down, I find that it seems to feel more full. I like how it's turning out. It seems different in person. I will say the lighting helps when you're in person because you don't have the glare that you might get while you're filming on a camera. But I finish it off. I think it looks pretty full, and I think that it's sort of exactly what I envisioned. Now, I didn't know if I was end up using die cuts or something like that, but I'm happy with how simple it is with just the butterfly pieces, the leaves, you know, not too much. Now, I do struggle with the title quite a bit because I did not have a title in mind when I started this layout, nor did I have a place in mind for the title. So I tried a couple of these big words and I looked through a lot of my thickers. A lot of my thickers don't have the letters that I need, the vowels specifically, or the T's that I need for the word gift. I end up titling this 1 year gift because it's pretty straightforward, and that way I can write something else in the little label there in terms of journaling. But I think that despite trying all of these, I think I tried 5 different things before I found one that would work. Sometimes you'll find that this is sometimes the most frustrating part, is when your supplies don't serve you properly. And if you guys are interested, definitely check out my 2020 Creative Reset series where we will be going over that in 2020, how we can really evaluate our supplies and are we holding on to things we'll never use and that kind of stuff. So I end up going with this Jelly Bean Soup font that's on the sticker sheet, which is so cute. It's like a soft dark black, but it's almost a gray. Do you know what I mean? But here are the close-ups. I really hope you guys enjoyed this layout. I had fun making it, even though it's a little bit tedious and there was a lot of liquid glue involved. It'll look a lot better once it's dry. But you can see here the little bit of hint of gold on that twine and all of the sequin bits across the back. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.